Thank you very much for the scattered applause. Aloha. Aloha. This is a great day in Hawaii because this is the first day of the change that is coming to Hawaii with the election of Jarrett Keohokalole. You can look forward to lots of people saying, I'm voting for Jarrett K. I'm speaking today and speaking first because I'm the sole representative of the greatest quartet of representatives we ever had in Washington, D.C. The two Dans, Patsy Mink, and I brought up the rear as part of that team, a quartet of representation. We are a small state, 5,000 miles away from the seat of national power. You have to have a team that can work together, a quartet of representatives of this state that understand that they need to work together to make it work. We don't have a quartet there now. We've got a trio. You cannot count on Ed Case when the going gets tough. You're not an independent if you're voting with Donald Trump. What we need there is Jarrett and the kind of leadership that he will bring. Imagination, youth, courage, intelligence, that's all embodied in Jarrett. It is crystal clear to me, as someone who was part of that team, who understood what teamwork counts. If you want to talk about independence, can you tell me 4 more independent personalities on the face of the earth than Patsy Mink, Dan Akaka, Dan Inouye, and Neil Abercrombie? I don't think so. Our independence, not of commitment to the values of the Democratic Party, but our independence to understand that we had to stand up for the values of the Democratic Party. That's what Jarrett brings. The values of the Democratic Party is embodied. You notice this young man here today in his red carnation lei. What's that tell you? That tells you that here's somebody who understands that the legacy of the Democratic Party is embodied in the Spark Matsunagas, in the Patsy Minks, and the Dan Inouyes, and the Jack Burns. Everybody who knew what that red carnation lei meant. That meant commitment. Commitment to the values of the Democratic Party, of justice and opportunity. That's what he will bring to our team, our quartet of individuals, yes, but our team that's going to go to Washington and represent Hawaii. I could not be more proud to be here today to say that when you vote for Jarrett, you're voting for someone we can count on. Someone when all hands are on deck, when all hands need to be on deck, he will not be missing the way the present Representative Ed Case is missing when it comes to backing up the democratic values that Hawaii stands for. Voting rights, justice, that's what Jarrett will be for. That's what you can count on with him. Imua, Jarrett.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Dr. Olivia Manayan. I'm an OBGYN physician based here in Honolulu. Every day I have the privilege and the responsibility of caring for our patients during some of life's most vulnerable moments, whether they're seeking prenatal care, navigating pregnancy complications, or making deeply personal decisions about their reproductive health. And I'm here today because I want to be very clear about something. The decisions that are made in Washington, D.C., 5,000 miles away in closed-off rooms, have real and immediate consequences for us here in Hawaii. Our population's ability to access their right to health care is directly shaped by decisions that are made far from our shores. Let me give you just one example of how Washington's decisions hit home. Medicaid. Here in Hawaii, Medicaid, or Quest, covers over 34% of all births. It is the backbone of prenatal care for many. It's how our moms get ultrasounds, labs, prenatal vitamins. It's how we screen for high blood pressure, diabetes, mental health concerns. And yet, with the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, politicians in DC have chosen to cut Medicaid, to limit eligibility, and to impose restrictions that will disproportionately impact rural, indigenous, and immigrant communities. The proposed cuts are estimated to cut Medicaid federal spending by nearly $1 trillion over the next 10 years. When Medicaid is under attack, it's not just a budget line item. It's a pregnant patient who now has to wait an extra month just to be seen. It's a person with a high-risk pregnancy who can't afford to drive into town every week. It's a baby who was born too early because we didn't catch something in time. Healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. And it doesn't stop at care for birthing people. Access to abortion is under siege nationwide. And while Hawaii's protections remain strong, federal restrictions to Medicaid will limit many people's access to this essential health care, as well as access to essential services like screening for cancer and screening for sexually transmitted infections. The care that I provide should be what is best practice, not what is dictated to me by lawmakers who did not train to provide this care. As a physician who practices through the lens of reproductive justice, I want to be really clear about what that means. Reproductive justice is the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, to have children, to not have children, and to parent the children that we do have in safe and sustainable environments. It requires access to childcare. It requires access to transportation. It requires access to health care. 50% of Hawaii's keiki are covered by Medicaid. How can we expect, without access to these essential services, for our children and our people to thrive? Rather than kneecapping our kama'aina, we should be investing in services that actually support people. We need someone in Washington who will protect our values of compassion, community, and kuleana fiercely. Jarrett Keohokalole has shown time and again that he is that person. We need leaders who don't just vote the right way. We need leaders who listen, who show up, and who refuse to accept the status quo. And that is exactly who Senator Keohokalole is. He's not afraid to have the hard conversations. I've seen him sit down with healthcare providers, patients, kupuna, and young people alike, not just to talk, but to listen and to understand. He asks the right questions. He digs deeper. He takes the time to learn. And then he gets to work. His track record in the state senate and his collaboration with community partners shows a clear dedication to a safer, more affordable, healthier Hawaii. As a physician, I know what it looks like when someone's life is on the line and you have to act. Jarrett leads with that same urgency, that same moral clarity, because for him, this isn't about politics. This is about people. It's about whether a parent working 2 jobs can afford to take time off to take their child to the doctor. It's about whether a pregnant patient has to fly to another island just to get routine care. Our people should not just have to scrape by or continue to have to navigate systems that were not built for them. We need someone in Congress who doesn't just understand the unique challenges we face in Hawaii, but who feels them, who lives them, and fights for us the way that someone would fight for their own family. That's Jarrett Keohokalole. So today, I'm proud to stand beside him as he launches this campaign, not just for a seat in Congress, but for a better future for all of us. For a Hawaii where, regardless of immigration status, of income, or geography, people can access healthcare with dignity. Let's send someone to Washington who won't accept, that's just how it is, for an answer. Let's send someone who will fight for us, with us, and because of us. Mahalo nui loa. Let's get to work.
Jarrett, I was a supporter of yours until you put me behind the last speaker. Now I'm not so sure. You know, This is a very important day for all of us. I want to speak on behalf of the old farts in the room. Those who were around in 1941 and the scare that we went through and the feeling that we may not have the democracy that we held so importantly to all of us, and how frightening that time was, when I never ever thought in my lifetime I would have that feeling again. And I do, and it's now. I feel for you. I don't worry about me. I've had my great times over the years, but I really feel for the young people in the audience and for the people in Hawaii who are facing beyond anything I could even imagine. People afraid to go to work because they may have a relative who doesn't have a card. People who are afraid to go out anymore. We are facing a crisis, and we need leadership, and we need a generational change of leadership. And that's why I'm so happy to be here today to just say a few words about Jarrett. And like everybody else, I tried, Neil Abercrombie and I worked all night trying to pronounce his name properly. And I've decided that he's Jarrett K for me, and I hope by the end of this campaign the community will know who Jarrett K is. The closest I could come was Kalohe, and I knew that wasn't going to work, so I'm deciding to stick with Jarrett K. Jarrett's father asked me if I would meet with Jarrett when he came out of law school. And by the way, we have several things in common. We're both tall, dark, and handsome, you know. But actually, he and I are both St. Louis and University of Hawaii, and we both did it the hard way. And I am so proud to be an alumnus along with Jarrett of our school. So we need Jarrett K in Congress. His father asked me if I would spend some time with he and Ku to talk about his first campaign. And in that very first campaign, I just could feel something that didn't really hit me all the way until I watched him and watched the way he campaigned, watched the way he got in, and in a short time from 2018 to 2025, he's been involved in Red Hill. He's been involved in Lahaina crisis. He's been involved in helping people who can't afford insurance for condominiums. He has got in, he's rolled up his sleeve, and he's willing to call people up and say, I don't know, I don't understand this, explain it to me. He is a generational talent that only comes once in a while. We need him in Congress. We need him to take us to the next step. And I think if we all get together, we can make it happen. Thank you and aloha.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Ku'ulani Keohokalole, and I'm the wife of Jarrett Keohokalole. I first met Jarrett in 2004 as we were students at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and we were both leaders for the new orientation summer program, which helped to orient hundreds of new incoming freshmen to the university. And at the time, he stood out to me, not just because he was the tallest in the room, obviously, but also he was smart. He was funny, he was charismatic, and he was cute. And he was a St. Louis boy of this castle girl's dreams. As I got to know him, I learned that Jarrett is a very humble leader. He has a grounded confidence that inspired many of us to also feel confident in our leadership. Early on in our relationship, I earned an internship at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., and Jarrett eagerly came to visit me. 2 kids from Kaneohe wearing winter coats for the first time. We sat on the National Mall and we looked at the U.S. Capitol. And at that time, we dreamed about what it would mean to come back to Hawaii and make an impact on our home. When he asked me to marry him, as you can imagine, it was tough to learn his last name. My last name was Miyashiro, and I was going to Keohokalole. And I've learned the trick is to go slow, Keohokalole. Over 21 years, we've lived and worked in both DC, New York, and back here in Hawaii, where we've come to raise our 3 children, grounded in the values that we were raised with: aloha, kuleana, and speaking up for those who can no longer speak for themselves. As our oldest makes his way through high school and soon to adulthood, we're starting to wonder, what is the Hawaii that we are leaving behind for them? The Hawaii that we know and love. Are they going to be able to afford and stay in it at all? And that's why, as a family, we are 100% committed behind Jarrett's answer to the call to advocate for us in Congress. Because he's not just advocating for our family, he's advocating for all of us. I've seen him in 11 years as a state representative and state senator take some really hard stances. And I've seen him listen to community, whether it's been in town halls, at Long's when we're standing in line, at Zippy's, at Costco, at the mall, and the farmer's market when I'm just trying to feed my kids. He listens to community because he truly cares. I even had a woman lean over me once on a flight home from Vegas just to talk to him. I'll never forget a Chinese New Year lion dance performance where a woman came out of the lion to talk to my husband. And he takes the time because he truly wants to know what the community wants. And I see him make that sacrifice. It's not just for him, but he's doing it for the betterment of Hawaii and making it a better, fairer place. Will this journey be hard? Yes. Will I want to read every news article comment? Probably. But we're committed anyway, because this is an inspiration not just to our children who are inspired to do public service like their dad someday, but to the many kids who get to see themselves represented in Congress. And so I'm proud and excited, and I ask you to stand behind us and support Jarrett for Congress. And now I have the privilege and honor of welcoming, and please welcome my husband, your friend, Jarrett Keohokalole.
You're mad, Walter. She's been planning that for 20 years, and now I gotta follow it. Thank you, everyone. Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you all with me. Just to start off, for those of you who don't know me, I grew up like many kama'aina. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, born and raised on Oahu. My mother, Marilyn, is from Medford, Oregon. She came to Hawaii after she met my father and worked as a nurse, first at Kapi'olani and then at Kaiser Hospital. She worked in the NICU, which is where they care for the most premature babies that need services in the incubators. I remember going to visit her one time and looking inside. And the thing that I really remember about my mother's work as a nurse is, she really did have the nurse's touch. She was so good at bringing a calming presence to these very distressed parents who were in maybe the worst time of their lives, trying to care for their vulnerable newborns who were having a hard time and they had to separate from in the hospital. I'll never forget that, it really was her job. She made me realize it was her job to help people. That was her job, to help people. And it worked. Well, one time we were at the mall when I was a kid, and a lady randomly came up to us. And Mom, I don't know if you remember this story. She gave you a hug, and they started talking. And there was a little toddler running around. The toddler was the preemie baby that she had cared for 4 or 5 years earlier. And the mother remembered her and came up and thanked her. And that was really the thing that I remember and took away from that, is that when you help people, you can make an impact. And it's a very rewarding thing to be able to do. My father, Adrian, grew up as the second youngest of 9 kids. He worked construction. I remember when I was a young kid, I used to try and get up early in the morning before the sun came up so I could catch him before he went to work. He'd work long hours, a lot of times on the weekends. He'd come home at the end of the day tanned and tired and dirty. Us boys, we were 3 boys, we wanted to be around him all the time. And he really provided for us. And he was generous with us, very disciplined, but also generous. On the weekends, he used to take us to Chinatown, to the fish market. Or we would go buy Chinese roast pork. And if we were well behaved, which was rare, he would buy us spam musubi and passion orange. I remember that on the weekends. We'd come home together. We lived in a big extended family where all the brothers and sisters and cousins were all together. We weren't rich, but we had everything we needed. We lived in a community. I remember playing out in the yard and out on the street with the cousins until dark. In the summertime, the whole family would go out camping. On the weekends, we'd go to church or to the beach. We had a great life. And that whole community really, in Hawaii, your family ties and your community make you who you are. And that had a huge impact on me. I never forgot that, and it was something I wanted my kids to be able to experience when they came. After I graduated from high school in St. Louis, in Honolulu, I went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And between sloughing off and working and going to Kiwalos to bodyboard and a little bit of studying, I got incredibly lucky and I met my amazing wife, Ku'ulani. How about a nice round of applause for her again? After I met Ku'u, things really started to look up for us. Eventually, we moved to the East Coast to work and to continue school. But when it was time to raise a family, we decided to come home and raise our kids here because, again, we wanted them to grow up the way we did. But you know what we didn't realize is how incredibly hard that actually was going to be. You know, I came back for law school, we had our son, and we really struggled when we came back. It was hard to find places to live, it was hard to make ends meet, and if we didn't have the support of our family, we really wouldn't have made it. And we didn't know it then as a young family going through those troubles, but we weren't alone. That's experienced by so many families all across the state. And it has all sorts of implications that I didn't even realize. You know, when I first ran for office in 2014, I remember knocking on doors in my neighborhood, in the community, and I came across an elderly couple, Richard and Audrey. And they were talking about really how dejected they were, that they had worked their whole lives, saved up, played by the rules, to be able to enjoy their golden years around their family and their grandkids. And they were so sad to explain to me that they only got to see their grandkids when they came for 1 or 2 weeks during the holidays to visit because they had moved away. This is not right. That's part of why I got involved in office. Because people should deserve the right, local people have the right to stay here, raise their families, and enjoy the same lifestyle and livelihood that they grew up in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's why when I got into office, I fought hard for funding for housing construction, for infrastructure so that we could build homes, and I passed bills to crack down on illegal vacation rentals that were taking over our communities. You know, also, part of it is also having the hard conversations. You know, when you want to look out for people, sometimes you have to say things and do things that everybody knows is the case, but not necessarily everyone wants to speak up and say. Like demanding transparency from our utilities for rate increases. Like running to the problem. When our insurance industry went into crisis after the Maui wildfires, you know, I didn't just stay put. We convened, worked together with the governor's office. We convened a group of experts and advocates to try and dig in on the problem. I didn't know anything at all about the insurance industry and actuarial modeling and disaster modeling. We just learned it as we went. We convened, we worked together, and 3 weeks ago we passed a bill that the governor signed that created another option for insurance for condominiums that were really struggling. You know, to date, dozens of buildings have signed up and hundreds of residents are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance premiums. That didn't happen on purpose. It didn't happen on accident. It happened because we leaned in and we tried to address the problem. Thank you.
Get done.
So I have other remarks about how, you know, in addition to that, substantive remarks about how, you know, the next step is to convene a landlord-tenant task force to overhaul the landlord-tenant code so that we have renters' rights. We're going to talk about CDFIs on condominium deferred maintenance and working with AOAOs through insurance plans of operation. You know, all this substantive stuff, and all my people behind me are going to melt. So I'm just going to cut ahead and talk to you guys about another story I remember that I really never forget about growing up on the windward side. We used to go down, my dad used to take us down to a beach park at the end of our road, and we would catch opai. So opai are those little red shrimps that you can use for bait, or you can dry them and put them in saimin. And there were mud flats out there, and on low tide, you just had to walk out with a scoop net. All the kids in the neighborhood would go, and we would just gather opai. When we got back from the East Coast, I went down to that park where I grew up, and the opai are gone. They're not there anymore. And when I realized that, I thought about how when I brought my kids down there, I could only tell them the story about gathering opai. I couldn't show them because they were gone. And that's why I ran for office. because someone has to step up and make sure that the Hawaii we grew up in is the Hawaii that we can show our children, that they can experience for themselves. What kind of Hawaii are we passing on to the next generation? So one of the first things we did was we required water monitoring so we could get a handle on what was going on. Then we reached out and worked on cesspool leaching, which was causing part of the problem on the windward side, but also down here in Honolulu and on and out in Ewa. You know, it really is for me. It's just about action. You know, and it's both things. It's both making sure that we have the opai in the ocean for the kids to gather, but it's making sure that we have the grandkids here in Hawaii and not moving away so that we have someone to teach how to catch the opai.
Sir. Yes, sir.
But you know, regardless of what we do at the state level, no matter how hard we work on our priorities, like keeping people here, you know, cleaning up our environment and handing it over to the next generation, I've found that we're just really hampered by the craziness in Washington. We really need action on that to push back on this chaos. I didn't realize what Walter was thinking. And it really does make me wonder what kind of moment we're in and what kind of leadership we really need to go up there and fight for us and push back. I mean, we desperately need urgency, energy, and passion to make things happen that actually help us. You know, like repealing these crazy tariffs that we pay, not the foreign countries, that are really killing our small businesses and raising costs for everyone. Like reversing these the one big bad bill crazy tax cuts for the wealthy that very few local people are going to benefit from. And you know, they're also coming at the cost of 30,000 kama'aina losing their health care and cuts to public education. You know, I don't understand what world we're in where making more room for the wealthy at the cost of cuts to education makes any sense. You know, we can do better. We can do different things like bringing in federal investment for our infrastructure so that we can be resilient to climate change. Like bringing in investment for our emerging industries so that our kids don't have to leave elsewhere for more opportunity. It's time to focus on things that matter to us here in Hawaii. And that's what I want to do. Because like my mother taught me, we're supposed to help people in this job. That's our job, to help people. In my work in the legislature, I've tried to help people. I've tried to listen and make people feel like they're being heard and they're being counted. You know, when COVID happened and you couldn't get into the legislature, I led a live stream project to put every hearing and vote online so that people didn't have to come in to participate in their process. After the Maui wildfires hit and we realized that it was very difficult to understand what they needed out in Lahaina in the community, and it was hard to expect people who had lost their homes and cars to come to Honolulu to sit, we had a field hearing. We went out to Lahaina and we heard from people. You know, this seat in Congress, again, is about more than just taking votes. It's about more than bringing things into Hawaii. It's about making sure people feel like they're a part of the process. It's about making sure that this seat in Congress is about Hawaii's place in the world and making sure that people from Hawaii have a say in that. And it's not just our future is not being dictated to us by someone 5,000 miles away who's never been here and doesn't care about us at all. I ran for office because I didn't like the way things were going. And I decided not to wait for someone else to fix it. Like my father taught me, you know, if you really want something done, you gotta take responsibility for it yourself and get in there and fix it. And you'll be surprised how many people come along or are already in the work that you can just join in on. So today I ask all of you to join me in this next step. Today I'm declaring my candidacy for Hawaii's 1st Congressional District in the United States House of Representatives. And starting today, we're going on a 90-day listening tour across House Congressional District 1. Please go to Jarrett's 2 R's and 2 T's, jarrettforcongress.com, and take our survey. We want to start a conversation with people. We want to hear your hopes, your worries, your dreams for the future of Hawaii. So please engage with us. We'll be going around and talking to people, and we want to hear you. It's time for change. Our kids demand it, our future requires it, and together we can make it happen. I'm Jarrett Keohokalole, and I humbly ask for your support. Mahalo, and let's get to work. Thank you, everyone.